school
You need
with my
decorations.
mom, and I
Oh,
won't
I
be
got
back
my,
until
I'm
Wednesday.
creating everything.
So I'm
I
just
got
gonna give
my
you the
house
heads up today.
decorated. Yeah.
So you'll be back on the 10th, Wednesday?
On the 3rd.
Oh, you'll be back on the 3rd, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Fun.
I'm like, biology. He's like, you're going to pay me to study biology.
Women, they had a good time. And then they had that guy
Biology and
plays the
chemistry.
piano.
And
I don't know
no,
if you've ever had him.
It's not my thing.
I don't know, he said 2 for 1.
I finished
Anyway, he went on and on. I had to leave before he finished, so, and then they were gonna play some games with the ladies.
schools. What
Yeah,
they do is,
so
if you take AP
they had
classes, I give you
prizes and
credit
stuff,
for
and they
it
gave
only if you
everybody
score
a
5 on
place,
5 on the AP.
Are there waters over
You know,
here?
of course, I think our people decorated the tables and everything, but your people were cleaning up afterwards and picking up.
All of them.
Not too bad. You?
I thought it was really good.
So,
Please.
Sherry, water?
like,
Oh, you got it, yeah, that's right.
I don't think that kid is ever really
Yeah,
so
I'll take
Bring 2 in case mine empties, because mine's full of ice. I gotta have ice.
be, you know, up late at night studying.
Sir, thank you.
Make sure to sit 10 hours every night.
Jeff is coming, I know that. Talked to him this afternoon.
Others studying, I have no idea. Like, okay. I said, are you paying attention in class? He said, yeah, the teacher's up to you. If you pay attention and you ask questions, you don't have to kill yourself.
How traffic is.
No,
Probably had to take him to Ann Arbor too.
not at all. I said, he'd be like, oh,
And there he is.
There he is, right on time.
to go for a run. And between all this, he decided, like, he goes out with his friends. So every time he has to ask me for money, like, I give him some money. He's like, this is too embarrassing. I need to get a job. So he went, stopped at Kroger, got himself an interview, and
I think
he
it took
started
him
jazz.
longer to
Every Sunday,
get all of his.
I said, you don't need to, you know. He's like, no, 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 I'm going to. I'm like, you have enough on your plate.
Oh, you stopped at the police station.
Better believe I stopped at the police station. Bernie's not here though, right?
No.
Is it just me or is it hot? Your tree trunk. Good. It is, the heat is up there, right?
Pretty face.
Per township standards, because township standards.
You got lots of wrapping paper.
Well, it was all electronic this time, so. A lot of screen time this week.
Good evening. Welcome to the Charter Township of Van Buren Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, December 13th at 5, starting at 5:30. I'm calling meeting to order. Could we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, could we please have a roll call?
Bud. Bernie Grant is excused. Peter Creel.
Here.
Medina Atchison is also excused. Jackson Paul.
Here.
Jeff Jar. Brian Cullen.
With that, approval of, we have a quorum, so we have the agenda before us. Could we have a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Peter.
Support.
Commissioner Creel, and support by Commissioner Jar. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Minutes. We have the minutes from the regular meeting of November 8th, 2023. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve as submitted.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jar, support by Commissioner Pohl. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that motion's carried. We also have minutes from the special meeting of November 28th, 2023.
To the chair, make a motion to approve the special meeting minutes of November 28th, 23.
We got a motion by Commissioner Bud and supported by Commissioner Jar for the approval of the minutes from November 28th, 2023. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. And that carries. We now don't have any correspondence, public hearing, or old business. First item number 1, we have an extension request, case number 20037, preliminary site plan approval for 5N Van Buren LLC, Integrity Component and Design. A request by Alan Scott on behalf of owner 5M Van Buren LLC for an extension of approval for previously approved preliminary site plan to construct a roof and floor truss manufacturing facility, which includes a 68,228 square foot building, an outdoor storage area for building equipment and supplies. Preliminary approval was granted on November 14th, 2022. The site is located at the 21.3 acre site located at 5925 Beck Road, parcel ID number 830149900017003 on the east side of Beck Road, south of Michigan Ave. The parcel is zoned M1 Light Industrial. We first have a presentation by Township staff. Director Power.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everybody. As mentioned, there's a request for an extension of a previously approved preliminary site plan for the site that you see up on the screen, which is the Integrity Component and Design development. The development was summarized by the chair. Preliminary approval was granted on December 14th of 2022. Section 12.207 of our zoning ordinance prompts the expiration of a site plan after 1 year. However, at the Planning Commission's discretion, based upon cause shown by the owner or applicant, the Planning Commission may grant up to 2 12-month extensions to the review and construction process. And the applicant has supplied a letter addressed to the Planning Commission that explains the reasons for the delays in their project. Following preliminary site plan approval, they cite global economic conditions. And they state that their client could not continue in the process of expanding the facility directly following the 2022 approval. As they continue to consider economic conditions, they do request this extension as they do plan to continue this process over the next 2 calendar years. My suggestion to the Planning Commission is that they may approve the request for an extension of the effect of this preliminary site plan to allow the applicant to continue through the engineering and final site plan review process to have their final site plan approval by no later than December 14th, 2025, hopefully sooner than that. As a condition of approval, I recommend that the application for engineering and final site plan approval is subject to the township's engineering standards and all current township and county standards in place at the time of the application. We do have Alan Scott from Rand Construction here if there are any questions for the applicant.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, comments, concerns?
Nothing from the applicant?
Do we have, not on my agenda. Do we have anything from the applicant? I'm just following my agenda.
Hello. Is it on? Hello. I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah, we can hear you.
the introductions that have been given thus far, you just hit the button?
Could you introduce yourself for us, please?
Yes, my name is Alan Scott. I'm with Rand Construction. We currently really just completed, according to this plan here, the expansions that just happened at Mann's Lumber. That's who owns Integrity Component and Design. And actually, Friday, I'm walking with their planning department to do a final walkthrough on that property. So that's kind of also part and parcel as to why this one slowed. Took forever on that one, not we, the project took forever. So now we'll turn our attention to this project in your community.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, discussion.
I have a question for Director Power. In your letter from staff, December 5th, you put in a condition at the end about final site plan approval no later than December 14th, and as a condition of approval, I recommend the application for engineering and final site plan approval shall be subject to the township's engineering standards at the time of application. Is that not normally the case?
That is normally the case.
Case, not really a condition, right? It's a, that's
Iterating a policy, yes.
understood. I wasn't unclear as to which application maybe you were referring to. The application for extension, okay. That's all I was wondering if that was something I didn't understand. I think I understand it.
Okay. Anyone else? Comments, questions? Seeing none, do we have any action by the commission?
Mr. Chair, I move to
Mr. Chair.
grant the applicant, Alan Scott, on behalf of owner 5M Van Buren LLC, a one-year extension of the preliminary site plan approval that was granted on December 14th, 2022 to construct a roof and floor truss manufacturing facility, including a 68,000 square foot building and outdoor storage area for building equipment and supplies at the site located at 5925 Beck Road, based on the analysis and subject to the conditions detailed in the letter of staff dated 5 December 2023.
Okay.
Second.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Jar, support by Commissioner Creel. Do we have any discussion on the motion?
Quick clarification from Commissioner Jar. Did you say 1-year extension or 2? I believe Director Power recommended 2.
Or did you recommend 2 or a single? I think we can only recommend a single at a time, can't we?
Number 2025.
The maximum extension over the life of the project would be, it's got to be, there can be no more extension beyond the 2 years following, 3 years following preliminary site plan approval. The zoning ordinance allows there to be successive 1-year extensions. So if the planning commission is more, that may be a sound recommendation to have them come back within 1 year for either an update or a request for another extension. And I think that's a good condition to place.
I think then that my motion is what I intended, a one-year extension, but thank you for checking it. I do appreciate that.
Thank you.
So do we have an amendment on that for the change of date at all?
No, I think 1 year and come back. That's
Okay.
That's what you stated in your
That's what
motion.
I move for, is
That's
a one-year extension.
Okay.
Come on back in 12 if you need another extension. The zoning ordinance allows for up to 2 total years to be granted, at a 12-month interval.
Okay, any other comments, discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Paul,
Yes.
Peter Creel,
Yes.
Sherry Budd. Jeff Jar.
Yes.
Brian Cullen.
Yes, motion carries. We're granting your 1-year extension.
Thank you very much.
Item number 2 for tonight, DTE Garage Addition Preliminary and Final Site Plan Approval. The applicant, Alicia D'Angelo Agnolo of Tetra Tech, on behalf of owner DTE Energy, has applied seeking to construct an approximately 1,900 square foot building addition containing 3 vehicle repair bays for housing additional vehicles in queue for repair. Modifications and updates will be made to the adjacent truck shelter and warehouse to accommodate this addition. Location is the parcel number V125-83046990011704 with the address of 8001 Haggerty Road. The development is located on the east side of Haggerty Road, just south of Ecorse Road. Can we have the presentation from the township staff, please? Director Power?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The scope of this project was stated in the agenda, and I'm primarily going to just be here to pull up the plans if necessary and pull up a presentation from the applicant when it's time to hear them speak. But otherwise, just I will defer to our planning consultant and engineering consultant for their reports on tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Director Power, members of the commission. As was summarized, the request before you tonight is from DTE Energy to build a 1,900 square foot addition to the existing Western Wayne Service Center building on Haggerty Road. The proposed addition is 1,900 square feet. Considering the size of the site, the area of disturbance is only 5,000 square feet or 0.1 acres of the entire site. The site is zoned M1 Light Industrial District, and the zoning ordinance does permit utility buildings as a principal permitted use in the district itself. All of the information that is required to be shown on a site plan has been included at this time. For the most part, the area where the proposed addition is going on the north side of the service center is hidden from view of Haggerty Road, and it is being built on an area that is already impervious surface. So they are not creating any new impervious surface area. The proposed addition complies with the height and the setback requirements for the district. With regard to access and circulation, nothing around the site is being altered. The access and circulation around the site will remain consistent as it does today. Based on the ordinance standards for warehouses and for office space, updated parking calculations have been included, but in essence, the applicant is eliminating 5 parking spaces from the site. And we believe that is okay because the site will still have 261 parking spaces, which is currently exceeding the 20% overage that our ordinance allows. So basically, elimination of the spaces is making the site slightly less non-conforming. The biggest thing with regard to landscaping and screening, at this time, nothing is proposed as part of this addition, but if the Planning Commission recollects, about a year or more ago, you reviewed a proposal on the east side of the site, and review and approval of the proposal included extensive landscaping along the site's I-275 frontage, and also redoing the entire detention pond in that area. We asked the applicant for an update, and the last update is Wayne County is still in the process of reviewing the detention pond. It's been over a year, but apparently they're still reviewing it. So whenever that is done, DTE will be updating the pond and putting in all of the landscaping that was previously approved, which should dramatically improve the appearance of the site from the freeway. There is no tree removal permit required as part of this proposal, and any stormwater runoff is subject to review and approval by the township engineer. Proposed lighting on the site meets ordinance standards, is downward directed and shielded. With regard to elevations, the applicant has submitted colored elevations and identified proposed building materials and colors, and they essentially match whatever is already there on the site. So the addition should seamlessly integrate itself into the building itself. It is to be constructed of beige concrete masonry units on the lower portion and brown insulated metal panels on the upper portion. No changes to the dumpster or signage are proposed. The review scope was really small since the proposed addition is so small considering the size of the site and the existing building on it. Based upon our review of the proposal, we believe it is appropriate to recommend preliminary and final site plan approval in a single step for this project. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Commissioners. This project, as Ms. Krishnan mentioned, is very minimal in scope and specifically very minimal in engineering review scope. But we did look at all utilities on the site to verify compliance or any adjustments to the site. Currently, there is no adjustments or proposed additions to the water main service on site. There is no proposed additions or adjustments to the sanitary service on site. And the only changes to the stormwater management on the site is the extension or reconnection of the roof drains and downspouts, which come off this side of the building currently. The new garage addition will push those roof drains into into an existing storm sewer, which will have a new manhole placed on top of that storm sewer. Due to the impervious nature of the parking lot versus the garage, there's no adjustment to the stormwater management system that is needed. And as Ms. Krishnan mentioned, there is a ongoing review of the full site stormwater detention redesign that goes along with the DTE paving project that was approved a couple years ago, year and a half ago. One comment that we do have, there's an existing storm sewer that's proposed along the western side of the garage addition that appears to be below the foundations of the garage piers. And it appears that the applicant and the plans don't show for this being removed. So one of our comments, and the only thing that we would like to see as part of the final site plan, is what the applicant plans on doing with this sewer, whether it is fully removing that sewer or potentially partially removing it and then filling it with flowable fill. The only other comment is we had made mention that the township only allows or does not allow for 36-inch manholes, and we request that they revise their manhole structure to 48 inches. No soil erosion permit will be required from the county due to the minimal area of disturbance. However, any areas that are disturbed in the township, we ask that or require that they follow the township standards for soil erosion prevention. With that, Fishbeck recommends that the Planning Commission grant the DTE garage and warehouse renovation preliminary and final site plan approval based on our engineering review of the site, and with the condition of noting what the plan is for the underground storm sewer along the foundation of the garage. With that, if anybody has any questions, we're happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. Director Power, do we have anything from the fire marshal on this?
Yes, sir. I apologize, planning commissioners. I'm going to just deliver you the most recent memo that we had on file for the fire marshal's comments. They are, thank you. Welcome. The comments before the planning commissioners are comments that were received on November 1st, which was prior to our planning staff review meeting for this project on November 15th, where I believe some of these revisions were addressed with the latest plan submittal. But the fire marshal at that time was responding to a few issues pertaining to water supply, fire department access, and required fire flow. With respect to water supply, they said at that time that greater detail was needed to show the fire department connection, or FDC. The location of the addition may impact the visibility of the FDC, and new signage and a horn or strobe, if not already in place, may be required, and that the location of the fire hydrant closest to the FDC will need to be shown. Perhaps the applicant can clarify the revisions that were made to address those items. Otherwise, with respect to access, sheet C105 shows vehicular circulation, and according to plans, the addition does not negatively impact fire department access. And regarding fire flow, the addition of the 1,900 square foot building with fire suppression will not require any increased need for fire flow. So those were the comments from the fire marshal. And we do have applicants here tonight from both DTE and from Tetra Tech, the firm that designed the project, and they have a brief presentation, I guess, that we can put up on the screen if you'd like.
Okay. And again, thank you, Director Power. The applicants, do you have a presentation for us?
Good evening. Great to see all of you again. I'm Barbara Reichwalder. I'm manager of DTE's Corporate and Government Affairs Group. On behalf of DTE, wanted to thank you all for your consideration of the review tonight of our application for review for our Western Wayne Service Center garage. So with me, I have Joseph DeLobo. He is from DTE's Facilities Group. From Tetra Tech, DT's contracted firm, we have Alicia Denolo, we have Mike McGillis, and Jessica Ostrowski. So at this point, I will turn it over to those folks for the presentation. Thank you.
All right. Hello, I'm Alicia Donilo. I know my last name's a little hard to pronounce. It used to be Clark, so.
Good Irish lady.
Flip to the first slide here. So the existing DT Western Wayne Service Center houses office space, warehouse, truck shelter, and a 2-bay repair garage that currently can't keep up with their fleet that they need to service. So we'll be providing this new 1,876 square foot building addition to house 3 new repair bays to house those, vehicles in queue. If you could switch to the next. So, as I just said, it consists of the 3-bay repair garage. It extends about 25 foot 4 inches from the north side of the exterior of the building. And interior modifications will be all within the warehouse, truck shelter, and associated building systems. Any new utilities will be extended from existing within the building. As for the stormwater, which I may show on the next slide, actually, if you forward it. I showed a section view here. As you can see, it's the same height as the existing building, which is roughly 25.5 feet. And we will be matching all existing exterior building materials, which, as the commissioner mentioned, was CMU block and metal panel. Next. So here the stormwater is shown here, and we will be, with the new foundations, removing that existing stormwater line that routes north there. It may not be shown correctly on this plan, so we'll make sure to update that, but it will be completely removed for the new foundations to go in. And you can see we've kind of offset the new stormwater line that collects from the roof drains inside the building in order to connect back into the existing system. So, and we did update our plans as well to provide a 48-inch stormwater catch basin based on the commissioner comments. Otherwise, no changes or modifications to the main stormwater system elsewhere. Next, please. And also, as the commissioner already mentioned, no new impervious surface area, no new or any modifications to any landscaping on site, and no newer modifications to easements, entrances, or signs, or really anything in view from Haggerty Road. I believe that's it. That's all I have. Did you guys have anything to add? Actually, I did want to comment, sorry, on the fire marshal comments. For the fire department connection, we did address that on the revised plans, and we are adding signage and a strobe on the northeast corner of the building, roughly right here. And we also did provide some dimensions on the plans from the wall to the existing fire department connection to ensure and improve that we have enough clearance there for, for any connections.
Okay.
That's it.
Anything else?
No,
Okay.
no, I'm good.
Anyone? Okay, commissioners, questions, comments?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Jar.
question for our engineering consultant. When do you need to have the concern about the storm sewer addressed by?
Was already addressed.
The storm sewer is addressed?
Yeah, through the chair, sorry.
Fine.
It's fine.
It's,
Typically, the process that we go through is after the commission approves final site plan, we still have a chance where we will review the final, issued for construction set of plans. So as long as it's addressed and shown on the plans at that time, then we're good.
final construction plans addressed for final construction?
Correct.
Okay. Thanks.
Anyone else? Comments, questions? Okay, do we have anyone from the public that wishes to speak? On Zoom?
I see nobody on Zoom raising their hand or even in the room at this point.
Okay. Then next, do we have a consideration for these folks?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Jar.
This time, I'm sorry, I apologize. My fellow commissioner gave me a look like, no, please. At this time, I move to grant the applicant Alicia D'Angelo of Tetra Tech on behalf of owner DTE Energy the preliminary and final site plan approval to construct an approximately 1,900 square foot building addition containing 3 vehicle repair bays for housing additional vehicles in queue for repair, as well as modifications and updates to the adjacent truck shelter and warehouse to accommodate this addition at 8001 Haggerty Road. This is based on the analysis and subject to the conditions detailed in the McKenna letter dated 4 December 2023, the engineering letter from Fishbeck dated 7 December 2023, the Van Buren Township Fire Report dated November 1st, 2023, the letter of staff dated 5 December 2023, with the additional condition that the plan for the storm sewer along the garage shall be addressed to engineering satisfaction before final construction plans are issued.
We have a motion, support?
Your support?
We have a motion by Commissioner Jar, support by Commissioner Pohl. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Roll call vote, please.
Peter Creel? Yes. Sherry Budd? Jackson Paul?
Yes.
Jeff Jar?
Yes.
Brian Cullen?
Yes. Motion's carried. You may begin.
On behalf of DT, we want to thank you so much for your review and approval, and if we don't see you before then, we hope all of you have a safe and happy holiday season. Thank you.
And to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 3 tonight. Case 23-063, MI Homes of Michigan, LLC, a site plan amendment. The applicant, David Straub of MI Homes of Michigan, LLC, is requesting an amendment to the approved Cobblestone Creek Woodland site plan for the inclusion of 5 new single-family architectural models and elevations into the approved project plans. The unfinished Cobblestone Creek Woodland subdivision is subject of the request. The development is located on the east side of Heft Road, east of Cobblestone Ridge Development, on the south of West Huron River Drive. Presentation to begin with the township staff. Director Power.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Tonight with us, we have David Straub of MI Homes of Michigan, LLC. The Planning Commission will recall that Mr. Straub brought forth a new architectural model to be considered for inclusion in the Cobblestone Creek planned residential development. That project is broadly this area kind of east of this circle, if you can see that circle, south of West Huron River Drive, east of Heft Road. This is the 3rd phase of construction and the 2nd phase of detached single-family dwellings that would be affected by this proposed change, as most of the first and other section of detached single-family homes has largely been built out by Boji Home Builders. At the meeting, the previous meeting where this project was discussed, there was a approval of a architectural model titled the Brooklyn Model, and the Planning Commission had conditionally approved that model, and there were some items related to that approval that I'll be going over tonight, but I also want to just generally go over the process for review and approval of the 5 new proposed elevations or models. And so the applicant has now provided in your packet 5 additional home plans or models with 4 variations of each. There's the Sawyer model, and I'll go to this screen briefly and toggle through them. But the Sawyer model the Brooklyn model with more variation than was proposed previously, the Aubrey model, model, and the Juliet model. Each of these, again, have 4 variations. There is a planned existing planned residential development agreement, or PRD agreement, in place for this property, which was approved in 2005, which outlines some of the requirements of the township zoning ordinance regarding these elevations. The plans are subject to the PRD agreement and the standards of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance, specifically section 5.115, which addresses specific architectural standards, which address architectural details in subdivisions and site condominiums. The plans are also governed by a master deed and bylaws, which will be administered by the Cobblestone Creek Woodlands Condominium Association. I will present my review of the various elevations. The first set of comments is pertaining to the project's site plan. The setbacks, as approved in the original site plan for Cobblestone Creek, require a 25-foot front yard, a 35-foot rear yard, and a 5-foot side yard setback. The typical lot size in the development is roughly 80 feet to 120 feet wide and 120 feet deep. Each of these proposed home plans will meet these dimensional requirements and setbacks fairly easily. The largest home plan is the Peyton model, which is roughly 46 feet wide by 45 feet deep, down to the Juliet model, which is 38 feet wide by 31 feet deep. Regarding floor area, the PRD requirement for Cobblestone Creek requires a minimum area of 1,800 square feet, and the proposed models, which range from 1,858 square feet to 2,605 square feet, will meet this requirement. There is a requirement that facade elevations have substantial difference from one another regarding architectural design, and the township zoning ordinance requires that this substantially different requirement be maintained for neighboring lots within 3 lots of the proposed parcel and within 3 lots of the property across the street. Staff reviews each individual elevation for compliance with this requirement, and based on prior approvals, the applicant can meet this standard and is expanding upon what they've presented previously with their submittal tonight. There must be 3 differences observed among the various models and elevations proposed. I have provided on page 40 of your packet a detailed breakdown of the ways that these different units vary from each other architecturally. There are slight deviations within each brand or label of model, as well as between the different labels. So Aubrey, the Aubrey model has 4 elevations, the Brooklyn model, the Juliet model, the Peyton model, and the Sawyer model. Each of these are distinct in terms of the length of the porch. I shouldn't say each are distinct, but the length of the porch is one of the factors that is modified in varying locations among these different units. What is labeled a major design feature, particularly the upper story gables, vary on all of the different models. I might as well make this a large view if that works. And window and door layout varies from unit to unit. And the material choices are different for, I believe each unit has a slightly different material composition. And again, the roof style, you can see that in this example, the E and F have a traditional gable roof, and the G and H have more of a hip roof. So it will be very possible for these models to meet the substantial different criteria among themselves and with respect to the existing models approved elsewhere in the project by Boji Home Builders. We also look at building materials, particularly the requirement that a minimum of 50% of the elevation is brick, stone, or another decorative material. This has been satisfied by the material schedule and calculations provided by the applicant that show greater than 50% total masonry on all of the 20 proposed variations. The final set of comments tonight is about the side entry garages. The approved site plan for the Cobblestone Creek project calls for a minimum of 30% of the units in the project to have rear or side entry garages. And this was discussed in some detail at the previous meeting involving this project. This requirement is consistent with the zoning ordinance requirements which were in place when the project was approved. There's one model in this set that includes a side entry option. And additionally, there's an approved set of models by Boji Home Builders, which is also building units in this project. The approved set of Boji Builders models includes some side entry garage options. As discussed in the Planning Commission meeting on October 25th, when the first approval of the Brooklyn model was completed, unless there's an amendment to the PRD plan and agreement for this Phase 3 project area, the 30% project-wide standard will still apply, which would equate to 32 of the remaining units. And in response to the discussion we had on October 25th, I tentatively assigned, let's see if this appears, tentatively assigned some side entry units in a Phase 3 area based on features such as width of lot, position as a corner lot, which provides more flexibility for side entry garages, proximity to common areas, and adjacency of other side entry units. So in response to the discussion that we had previously, I've provided a tentative placement of prospective side entry garage locations. And as a condition of approval of these models that are presented tonight, unless or until an amendment to the PRD agreement and plan are approved, the applicant shall only build front entry garage models on the units as designated in this packet for front entry garages. If the applicant finds that one of the identified locations for side entries, which in this case are the blue lots on the screen here, if they find that one of those is not feasible and they'd like to switch, they may do so in coordination with staff. They would have to reassign another unit that is essentially locked for a side entry placement. If they do that, then that can be done in coordination with staff. And that would ensure there's no net loss in the side entry designated units. So overall, the applicant meets all criteria for the requested site plan amendment. And my only recommended condition of approval, and I do recommend conditional approval, but my only recommended condition of approval is what I just stated, that unless or until an amendment to the PRD agreement and plan are approved, the applicant shall only build front entry garage models on essentially the 37 or so sites or units that are identified or designated for those models at this time, unless they coordinate with staff to swap the locations at a zero net loss of side entry lots in the project. With that being said, I'm happy to further discuss any of the findings in my report or answer any questions, but otherwise we have Mr. Straub here tonight, and he may want to speak as well.
Okay, thank you, Director Brower. The applicant, do you have any comments for us?
My name is David Straub. I'm with MI Homes of Michigan. I appreciate the opportunity to stand before you again. You'll recall that I was here back in October with only one of the 5 plans that we intended to bring to market here in this development. We've since had the opportunity to work a little bit closer with our architect, overcome some of the objections for our initial plan, and feel that now we've met the requirements of the township's ordinance by alternating the roof line and applying that alternate roof line to the Brooklyn plan as well. In the packet that you have today, we've included one representative side entry garage elevation for the Brooklyn plan itself. Since I submitted that, again, working closely with our architect, I've been able to provide representative elevations for the other plans as well. I have those with me this evening if you'd like me to circulate them. Otherwise, just wanted to let you know that we have taken the step forward to come up with those alternates as well. That being said, I'm available for any questions or concerns that you'd like to raise.
Thank you. Commissioners, comments, questions? Commissioner Jar.
Does the applicant have a picture of the Brooklyn model with the side entry garage available, immediately handy? I don't see a side entry garage picture in it, I don't think.
They're in that packet, and I didn't have it up on the screen, but I believe it's one of the pages in the hard copy submittals that was provided. It's a black and white sheet within that. I don't recall the page number.
Could the applicant just hold it up for a second so I can see it?
I'd be happy to.
Oh, perfect.
Thank you.
My apologies, they're not color rendered, they're just black and white for these.
Yeah, that's great. That's all I wanted to see. Yeah, got it. It's in the bigger stack. I just couldn't find it. Thanks though. I like the models, and I like what I've liked what you brought in today.
Thank you.
I especially like the color printouts on paper. It's a lot easier to appreciate than when it's on a projector where your viewing angle determines what color you see. So, I don't really have any other comments other than to say that I think the requirements were met.
So through the chair, just one question. The map that has the side entry, was that done by staff or was that done? So if it was, I think it was.
By staff, yep, and that's why there's some
Is the
flexibility.
applicant okay with this map showing the 32 sites that need to be side entry garage?
It's a good starting point. I think it's a good starting point, and I appreciate the, the condition that would allow us if we choose to put a side entry garage in one of those predetermined location, I'm sorry, a front entry garage in a predetermined location for side entry, that we'll be able to swap that in another area of the neighborhood. Ultimately, the side entry garage option is buyer or market driven. We're comfortable predetermining those, but there may be occasions where either my sales staff, if they're picking a spec home to build, or a buyer that comes in that chooses a home site, they may say, you know what, I really want a front entry or a side entry on one or the other lot designation that you have in front of you. And I appreciate the willingness to work with us in those situations.
So I guess the follow-up question is, if you can't meet the 32 based on market, which I totally get, because it's going to be market-driven, are you committed to come back and look at a change of the PRD?
I am, and to be with full transparency, I do intend to come before you again to discuss that. I'm hoping
That's what I.
that would
that's what I'm kinda
probably
getting
be
at.
definitely, if I can get my stuff in order, probably in January or February, if I can have everything in here in time.
Great. Thank you. That's all I have.
No question.
Anyone else? Comments, questions?
Just quick comment through the chair. Just thank you for coming back with everything you said you would. It makes it easier, and I know it sounds like a simple task, but we've had some other interesting cases lately, so this makes it nice.
You're welcome.
I would add thanks to our staff as well for making sure that the requirements were met in thorough detail. We really appreciate it. Makes our jobs easier. Thank you.
I do have one question on this, on your plans. Do they have options on some of these elevations as well? I'm concerned a little bit about the porches. If somebody wanted a full-length porch where in the side entry garage, you're only showing them at a limited distance, would they be able to extend those porches or?
So the porches would be elevation specific. The elevation changes or modifications that we have would be to add a third bay on the garage, or a 4-foot extension on the garage. And also the side entry option. And again, what I've provided you is just one iteration or one example of the side entry garage. There will be a side entry garage option available for each of the elevations that we'll be offering.
Okay, okay, fine. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions? Then do we have any action by?
Well, thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Jar.
at this time, I move to grant the applicant, David Straub of MI Homes Michigan LLC, an amendment to the site plan for the inclusion of 5 new single-family architecture models and elevations into the approved project plans at the site located at the unfinished Cobblestone Creek Woodlands subdivision, located on the east side of Heft Road, east of Cobblestone Ridge Development, on the southwest side of Huron River Drive, based on the analysis and subject to the condition detailed in our letter from staff dated 21 November 2023.
Okay, do we have a support for the motion?
Support.
Motion by Commissioner Jar, support by Commissioner Creel. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Sherry Budd,
Yes.
Peter Creel,
Yes?
Jackson Paul,
Yes.
Jeff Jar.
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. You too. Okay, brings us to item number 4, case 22010, Zippy Belleville Real Estate LLC, Zippy Auto Wash, final site plan review. A request by David Brewer, of Vaston O'Brien Incorporated on behalf of owner Zippy Belleville Real Estate LLC to construct a 4,900 square foot automatic car wash and related improvements on a 1.65 acre site. The project is proposed to be located at 11600 Belleville Road, parcel ID number 83-081-99-0004-711, which is Zone C2, Extensive Highway Business District. The property is located on the west side of Belleville Road between Venetian Avenue and Sunrise Lane. Could we have a presentation by the Township staff? Director Power?
Mr. Chair, this project was reviewed in our December meeting last year, and preliminary site plan approval was granted at that time, and special land use recommendation to the Board of Trustees was also granted. In January of 2023, the Board of Trustees granted approval of this requested special land use. They also requested that a full traffic study be completed. That traffic study has been provided with your materials in the form of a link to the full study that was distributed last Thursday. And otherwise, the applicant has been working with our staff to go through the final site plan review and engineering requirements, as well as with Wayne County. And again, I will defer to our other reviewers tonight, but I'm available to answer any questions, and I will go over the fire marshal's comments after hearing from our planning and engineering consultants.
Thank you, Director Power, members of the commission. As Director Power summarized, this project appeared before you almost a year ago, December 14th, 2022, and received preliminary site plan approval. And the two-step process is so that between preliminary and final, the applicant gets to complete full engineering and make sure they have Wayne County and Township engineers' approval to proceed to construction. The Planning Commission granted the approval subject to several conditions. I'll summarize those in brief. The first condition was to finalize a lot split. If the Planning Commission recollects, this site is contiguous with the Van Buren Urgent Care that is located to its west. So the applicant was required to split off the parcel into 2 different legal entities, which has been done. As a result of which, the access drive to the urgent care center is located across Zippy's property. So a permanent, irrevocable cross-access easement has been granted so that access to the urgent care will be maintained in perpetuity. One of the biggest issues with this project was the detention system. If the Planning Commission recollects, the preliminary plan you approved showed a detention pond on the southwest corner of the site. Apparently, once the applicant went through detailed engineering, while they were able to meet Wayne County standards, the pond size and the area available was not enough to meet the township's engineering standards. As a result, they had to go back and do underground detention, no longer an above-ground detention. That's what has taken time. Paul will go over the details of that engineering approval. From a planning standpoint, we just want to note that since it's no longer going to be a pond over there, this area needs to be maintained as a sodded lawn area. We no longer recommend seeding of properties because unless when you seed, you take real good care, it ends up as a weed-infested field. We would rather it's just maintained as lawn area right from the beginning. Another requirement was signage along the site's frontage. Each site is required to have only a single monument sign along the site's frontage. There already is a monument sign along the frontage for Meridian Plaza, which has got Van Buren Urgent Care on it. Zippy does not want to place their sign on the same sign. They have a separate small monument sign on the southeast corner of the property. As a result of which, the existing Meridian Plaza sign required a permanent sign easement so that Van Buren Urgent Care could still be advertised. And that easement has been granted and has been submitted to the township in its recordable form. Special land use approval for the car wash use in a C2 district was granted by the Board of Trustees on January 17th, 2023, with the condition that a traffic study be submitted. As Director Power referenced, it has been included in your packet. That study was done by Midwestern Consulting, and the study notes that while turning out onto Belleville Road from the shared driveway may be difficult during peak times, no improvements are recommended as a result of the development. Because this is an existing situation and forecasted level of service approaching this intersection is an F. Basically, level of service at any traffic light intersection goes from a grade A through grade F. And the grades are determined based upon the number of seconds it takes a car to go through that intersection. So A is the best, F is a failed intersection. In many cases, when you have such sites in close proximity to like the service drive and other lights, typically changes are not recommended because once you change the timing of one light, it is going to have a domino effect on all the lights that are further down the road. So unless it is going to dramatically improve the situation, typically signal light change timings are not done. At this time, all that's going to happen is there is going to be slightly 3 or 4 vehicles stacked on the applicant's site waiting to turn onto Belleville Road. So the delay will be on the applicant's site, not on Belleville Road, which is acceptable. The Planning Commission had also required, because it's a drive-through car wash, when vehicles come out, they wanted to make sure that somebody who's gone through the car wash doesn't immediately pull over right in the main aisle and start wiping down their car and blocking all traffic. So no parking signs have been posted as was required by the Planning Commission. A row of evergreen trees was also required along the south property line between the deciduous trees in order to provide more effective screening, and the landscape plan does show the additional trees. Another minor correction, the landscape plan notes that the deciduous trees will have a size ranging from 0 to 3 inches. Now, the minimum size of a tree has to be 2.5 inches caliper, so that note has to be corrected. At this time, we believe all of the conditions of preliminary site plan approval have been met. So it is our recommendation that the Planning Commission grant final site plan approval subject to the area of the detention pond being installed with sod and the legend on the landscape plan be corrected to note the right minimum size required for a deciduous tree. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Consultant Kammer, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So as Ms. Krishnan mentioned, these plans dated October 27th, 2023 were reviewed by Fishbeck for engineering feasibility or for engineering approval And since that time, or during the time of review, we've consulted with the applicant on some of the requirements prior to this letter. In addition to that, the applicant, since the time of this letter, the applicant has provided some information based on some of our comments and conditions. And during my reading of this letter, I will comment on those that have been addressed by the applicant since the date of this letter, which was December 4th, 2023. For the water main service for this site, there is an existing water main that runs north and south along Belleville Road. The applicant's plan does not indicate any proposed adjustments to this system other than adding a hydrant in that northeast quadrant of the site along Belleville Road. With that hydrant addition, we have asked the applicant, or had asked the applicant as part of this review process, to extend the hydrant, which was currently sitting in front of the monument sign for the urgent care. So since the time of this letter, the applicant has moved that hydrant further off the roadway, further towards the building. And also, as part of the Van Buren Township engineering standards, when we run into a dead-end main on a site, there's a requirement within the standards that a valve needs to be placed on that water main, essentially to make sure that we don't have to come back later and shut down the water main if an extension were to happen into this site. And with that, the applicant has added that valve, and that condition has now been met. So the two major concerns and conditions on the water main have been met on the revised plans that were submitted to us after the date of this letter. For the sanitary sewer system, the applicant doesn't show any adjustments or changes to the township-owned system. The plan indicates a 6-inch sewer service that ultimately outlets to the 12-inch sanitary sewer along Belleville Road, connecting in a series of sediment and reclamation tanks. We had previously asked the applicant to kind of provide a narrative as to how that works within the car wash, and in your letter, we have kind of left that written explanation in there for your just information moving forward. We currently have no comments on the sanitary system at this time. Finally, with the stormwater management, as Ms. Krishnan mentioned, the provided plans dated October 27th, 2023 had changed from the previous iteration that we had seen and had gone from an open detention basin in the southwest quadrant of the site, which is kind of shown up there, to an underground detention basin. And in some of our conversations with the applicant, we had concerns because they had submitted to the county based on these plans and then submitted to the township with an underground system. And so we did get clarification that the applicant went back to the county. So they got approval for the open detention system by the county, changed it, submitted to the township, but then resubmitted to the county, and now has approval from the county. So they do have approval from the county based on the plans that we see here, dated, or October 27th was the plans that were approved by the county. So they are matching now, and there's no concerns there. They did get approval from the county dated November 27th, 2023. We currently don't have any comments on their underground detention system. It meets all township standards, and obviously with their approval from the county, meets the county standards as well. No comments on the geometrics of the paving of the site. And the only question that I had, and I don't know, and maybe the applicant can comment on this, is whether or not they have received their soil erosion permit at this time. That is not a condition that would prohibit us from recommending approval, but is something that they would need to get prior to moving into construction. So with that, Fishbeck does recommend that the Planning Commission grant final site plan approval for Zippy Auto Wash based on the plans dated October 27th. With the conditions in this letter, updated plans have been sent. They are dated December 5th, but by when this letter was written, we hadn't had a full review. So we will work with the applicant and Director Power to approve the final issued for construction set. But at this time, the plan submitted for this review, we recommend approval based on those plans. So I'm happy to answer any questions any of you have.
Thank you. Director Power?
I also have a printout of the fire marshal's comment, fire marshal slash deputy fire chief's comments. Thank you. You're welcome. There you go. And thank you. Thank you. Yep. The Deputy Fire Chief Lenahan has reviewed the latest set of plans. His first comment is that to determine the required fire flow for this facility, a construction type per the NFPA is required. An additional hydrant has been added to the entrance off of Belleville Road, and the required fire flow for the 4,900 square foot structure has been met. With regard to fire department access, the required width of a fire department access road shall not be obstructed in any manner, including by the parking of vehicles. Fire lane signage has been added. There's an advisory comment that dead ends of fire department access in excess of 150 feet shall be provided with approved provisions for fire apparatus to turn around. I believe the plan addresses that. The section in the middle does not exceed that limit, so that I believe is addressed, but I'll let the applicants respond to that point. And the latest submittal shows the opening widened to 20 feet regarding the opening between vacuum stations to accommodate fire access. Finally, there's a requirement for a Knox box for access, and a Knox box located at the rear of the structure on sheet C3 has been noted. So that concludes the fire marshal's comments.
Okay, thank you. You have a presentation for us.
Hi, good evening. I'm Corey Weaver. My wife and I are the owners of Zippy Auto Wash. It's a small family business. I'm joined this evening by Greg Heim and Dave Brewer from Vanston O'Brien, our design build firm. Yeah, I'd like to thank Dan and the planning staff, Vidya and Paul, for all your prior input on the project. It's been extremely helpful, and we really appreciate all the guidance over the last year. So it's hard to believe it's been a year since we've been here, but pleased to be back. So thanks again. We've been in business for almost 15 years now with 4 entirely new sites in the greater Ann Arbor area, Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti, Saline area, and we have four additional sites in development, one here hopefully in Van Buren soon, one underway in Canton on Michigan Avenue, which hopefully you've had a chance to see at some point, one in Scioto Township, which is just underway now, and hopefully one in Milan also. So we had a more detailed presentation last December. I have that with me. Perhaps Dan has it also on his laptop. We can always jump into that if there are detailed questions. And then I'd also open it up here for Greg and Dave to answer any questions also, or add anything to the.
Well, there was a couple questions there, so I don't know if I need to respond to. I don't even remember what they were. Soil erosion, I don't know. Do we have that? We don't have that yet.
Would you identify yourself for us, please?
Brewer,
Okay.
Vanston O'Brien, thank you. It seems like there was 3 questions there. Do you recall?
We have not submitted for soil erosion yet.
Say your name is
Greg Heim with Vanston O'Brien, the design engineer on the project. So we have not submitted for a soil erosion permit yet. Construction timeline is not set yet, so we haven't proceeded with that. The other questions were fire access. We addressed the lane width so the fire truck has space to turn around, and that was kind of addressed in his letter. As as well as adding the missing signs to the plans. And we've also addressed the water issues. And the only thing I may not have noted on the plan was the sodded area above the detention for the site, which we're okay with.
Yeah, we'll comply with that. The other thing that I recall was the tree caliper size was, just an error on the plan. That was an accident, so we intend to comply with the 2.5-inch caliper.
That was a spreadsheet thing, changing 3 inches or something to 0 feet, 3 inches, and it just looked like 0 to 3.
Just don't want you to stick sticks into the ground and call it trees. Just making sure.
Computers are very efficient. They allow the making of mistakes very efficiently.
And glaringly sometimes.
So if you have any other questions, we're happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, questions? Commissioner
Comment.
Jarrett.
I'm a little concerned about the traffic study coming back as already being an F coming out of the lane. And I know that you can't, the grading system doesn't let you get worse than an F, but it's an F right now at 70 seconds, and it will be an F at 95 seconds is the predicted load. I'm a little concerned about the amount of stacking that could happen there. I don't know if I would necessarily say, well, we have a problem because of the proximity to the service drive light. But I just want to call out that being an F and then staying an F isn't necessarily the same thing. It isn't as telling, right?
Question for staff, maybe Dan, was that study conducted with Belleville Road, one-lane reduction being extended out because of the Denton Bridge? Because you know how that one lane, the right lane, comes down even more. So that traffic, I live in the area, so that traffic backs up, Commissioner Jar, right? During rush hour coming back into town, right? But was it based on that one lane being shut before the bridge, or was it?
I think it was 2020.
When was the study
report
done,
came
I
out,
guess,
right?
maybe?
In the last year, and I do not, maybe Paul remembers, but I don't believe it accounted for that, as that's a temporary condition. I don't think that accounted for the restrictions related to the Denton Road Bridge, from my recollection. I don't know if you remember anything different, Paul.
So it won't get any better, I guess, is what it might. I was hoping it was gonna get better because it would open up.
Yeah, and these are good questions, I guess, through the chair. If I could just expound a little bit. That's one of the things that came up early in the planning review process. This is already a heavily trafficked road, and this is a fairly intensive use. But the overall development plan originally had a significantly higher overall gross square footage, including, I think, a restaurant and a retail store behind a restaurant or retail in front of in the location where the Zippy is, as well as another outlet behind the current urgent care. So I think we've been looking at this as more of a comprehensive picture of some long-term traffic issues. One of the things that I just will point out, and it doesn't necessarily address the issue, but it allows for a potential future solution if the site configuration of the neighboring property were to ever substantially change. We do have in that cross-access easement and that road network alongside this parcel and the adjacent parcel, there's that access drive. It does connect directly to the border of the Burger King parcel. So if there ever was a comprehensive redevelopment of that site, that could provide access out to the road to the north. We know that today the Burger King circulation works against that, but that is something that at least is made possible by the fact that this site builds the road right up to that adjacent site.
Commissioner Jarrett.
Question for Director Power. I know at one point we had seen a redevelopment plan for that Burger King parcel that involved changing the drive-through, and there was some concern that it might interfere with the potential for cross-access.
Yes.
I haven't seen what's happening there.
The problem was Burger King added a second drive-through lane, as a result of which, even though this site provides cross-access that would go straight through to the service drive, vehicles exiting the site will be head-on onto the drive-through of Burger King.
But
So
that's the
King's-
proposed drive-through, because they haven't changed it yet, right?
Correct.
And are their plans imminent? I think that was more than a year ago that we saw those.
It was more than a year ago. There has not been any movement toward those plans since that time, and they did do some restoration work following some damage to that property, and I don't know if they're intending to come back. I will try to report out on that soon and try to find out what's happening with that project, but as of now, there's no movement on the final site plan for that project.
Okay.
Like Director Power said, cross-access would be great in that area, but for that, the Burger King site would need to be redeveloped. They would have to rethink their circulation pattern. Their circulation pattern works contrary to any feasible cross-access between all of the properties. So hopefully someday they'll think of rebuilding the site instead of just fixing it up.
Well, I only brought it up so that the applicant knows, when you do those traffic studies, I know they're expensive. We do read them, just so you know.
Okay, anybody else? Questions, comments? Okay, do we,
Oh, I'm sorry.
do we have anybody from the public to speak?
Nope, there are no participants on Zoom tonight.
Okay, then, we're at the point, commissioners, what's your desire?
Well, Mr. Chair, unless Commissioner Paul wants to jump in and make the motion, I'm getting he would defer to me on that. I would move to grant the applicant, David Brewer of Vanston O'Brien Incorporated, on behalf of Zippy Belleville Real Estate LLC, the final site plan approval to construct a 4,900 square foot automatic car wash and related site improvements at the site located at 11600 Belleville Road. This being based on the analysis and subject to the conditions that are detailed in the McKenna letter dated 5 December 2023, Fishbeck letter dated December 4th, 2023, the letter from staff dated 5 December 2023, and finally the VBT fire letter dated November 15th, 2023, submitted for your consideration. Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jar, supported by Commissioner Paul. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Peter Creel,
Yes.
Yes.
Jackson Paul,
Yes.
Jeff Jar,
Yes.
Brian Cummings.
Motion carries. Gentlemen, you may proceed.
Tonight, I'd just like to say that staff is a pleasure to work with, and we look forward to doing more projects here.
Thank you. That brings us to item number 5. Planning Commission Annual Activity and Public Participation Report. Overview by the Township Staff. Director Power, if you please.
Mr. Chair, this is a draft version of a report that will be finalized after tonight's meeting. If the Planning Commission is comfortable moving forward with this going to the Board of Trustees. Per the Michigan Planning Enabling Act of PA 33 of 2008, we are required to report out on our annual activities. And the report includes updates on the Planning Commission's progress in implementing the 2020 Master Plan, as well as public engagement activities, which is something that is coinciding with our requirements for redevelopment ready certification. So there's a public engagement activities report component of this. I apologize, there's a typo in this report that it states that the activities were for 2021, they are for 2023. So just noting the typo there, I will correct that. Starting with public participation activities, I won't read the report verbatim, but I'll just mention some of the high points. This planning commission has had a very busy year. We've met 25 times in public meetings, including 21 regular meetings and 4 either special meetings or workshops performed as part of other planning efforts. Those other 4 meetings include the workshop here, or open house, regarding the marketing plan and economic development strategy for the township, joint training session between the Board of Trustees and Planning Commission on missing middle housing, a joint planning commission meeting held last week with the planning commissions of the city of Belleville and Sumter Township, and a special meeting to address a site plan amendment at the beginning of November, or sorry, the end of November. The planning commission has also had 10 formal public hearings this year. Our meetings have been available virtually as well as in person with the Zoom format. We have sent postcards on 7 specific requests, such as rezonings and special land use approvals. Those postcards were sent out to 186 property owners. Our meetings are broadcast to various social media platforms, and we have received emailed and written comments on planning commission activities. So it has been a robust year for public participation. We still refer back to our adopted 2018 public participation plan, which on the electronic version of this packet, there's a link that brings you to that. Most of our public participation is conventional in the form of open meetings and posted public hearings, but occasionally we have workshops or similar sessions. In terms of the actions taken by the Planning Commission this year, the Planning Commission activities, you have granted 4 preliminary site plan and 7 final site plan approvals or final condominium approvals, and 1 final plan residential development amendment approval. There have been 6 combined preliminary and final site plan approvals, 3 recommendations on special land uses, 7 site plan amendments, 6 temporary land use permits, 3 rezoning recommendations to the Township Board of Trustees, 8 different discussions on zoning ordinance text amendments, and 2 formal recommendations to the Township Board for text amendments regarding residential dwelling height and daycare separation between daycare uses. You've authorized 1 tree removal permit. You've made commentary on 2 cases going to the Board of Zoning Appeals. You've granted 2 extensions to previous preliminary or final site plan reviews, and have discussed administratively reviewed projects on 3 different occasions. The Planning Commission has also updated its rules and procedures or bylaws, and has had 10 other general planning discussions this year. The Planning Commission has also taken a small but important step toward one of the objectives in the master plan regarding missing middle housing, encouraging the development of new housing in missing middle formats and or layouts that are currently absent or in short supply by creating zoning districts and design standards as necessary in the appropriate areas of the township. We've also had training on missing middle housing, but regarding the increased flexibility with the residential height, that's something that speaks to the master plan goals as well. And strategies or objectives that are listed as ongoing in the 2020 master plan should be continued to be implemented, and we and the staff and the Planning Commission try to ensure that that happens. With regard to significant activities, there's a lot of construction happening in the township. Industrial projects such as Our Next Energy, the Crossroads Distribution North Building 11 site, and JSB Builders are all in various stages of review and construction. Commercial projects such as Kenworth, Camping World, and Walmart and Meijer have either recently finished construction or are under review. And we also have received a couple of new commercial applications recently. We have residential projects such as Infinity Homes, Boji Home Builders, and the Mr. Straub with MI Homes of Michigan, and community and senior housing projects. We have our community center addition here at Township Hall. Clover Communities building a 128-unit senior apartment building. Hampton Manor coming closer to the completion of construction on their 84-unit assisted living and memory care building, and the Brookwood project with single-story attached multifamily senior housing is now starting to break ground as well, with some soil erosion and earthwork occurring. And as always, we have our interactive development map on the website that you can refer to for relatively up-to-date information on our development projects. So if there's any other questions or recommendations for inclusion in that report, I'm glad to hear them. Otherwise, I'll just bring this to the board in the early part of 2024.
Planning commissioners, any comments? Questions?
Busy year.
Busy year. It has been. Commissioner Jar.
I think maybe it was not this year, maybe it was the previous year, but I think our chairman also formed a couple of subcommittees. Was that this year? And I think, did we have a few subcommittee meetings in addition to the 25 public meetings?
Yes, you have. We
there.
should, yes.
Since we're, it does represent some of the work that we've been doing this year. It'd be my only suggested addition. I would say that it's a lot. We did a lot this year, I think.
Yeah.
And I want to say that is due to, in no small part, to the efforts on our staff, Director Power, our recording secretary, Ms. Harmon, and our very dedicated group of consultants, Ms. Krishnan, Mr. Kammer, from Fishbeck and McKenna. Without a good staff, we wouldn't be able to do this body of work that we turn out every year. They are the ones that make it so that our meeting minutes are legible, so that our plans are reviewed, so that important details are underlined in the letters, so that we don't miss them. And it's our staff that really lets us, our staff and our consultants that really let us do this body of work and meet 25 times in a year and really allow Van Buren Township to build and develop and progress and continue to be the premier community that it already is. And that said, if we could get a little bit of a blurb on our subcommittees, if you think it's appropriate, Director Power, I think it's an excellent report overall, and it really is reflective of the professionalism that our staff brings to this table, and that I like to think our commissioners bring as well.
We have to if they're bringing it.
They bring a high bar.
Yes, they do. It is.
Through the chair. Dan, you mentioned Walmart and Myers. Myers isn't mentioned, but you are going to add that, correct?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
We'll add
Myers.
that if that's
Yeah,
not in there.
for sure.
He mentioned it, but it wasn't written. I just want to make sure that it gets put on there because they also
Yeah.
finished a big
Yes, they
big
did.
addition this year.
Thank you. That's a good, call. I don't know why that was not in there, but it will be.
Anybody else? Comments, questions? I too want to pass along the thanks for what you have brought to us and how much easier it makes this job, sitting here, directing when we have such information presented in front of us. It is a pleasure to work with you both and with staff as well.
Thank you very much. This would not be possible without as devoted a planning commission as you are. I know there's been some long nights and a lot of meetings, so I appreciate it.
Well, it's our community.
If I may, Chair, as Commissioner Jar said, not only have all the plans that you have approved and all the amendments that you have discussed, not only has it worked towards keeping Van Buren growing and a premier community, but it is thoughtful and sustainable development. You have not just approved projects for the sake of approving. Every project that crosses your table, you have looked at it from a standpoint at how is this going to impact the community? How is it going to impact the people who live here and who still have to live around the traffic that is generated by these people? Is it contributing something good to the community? How can the design standards be elevated? So it's a lot of thoughtful planning. And like I always say, I work in a lot of communities. This is one of my favorite places to work in. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to work here for this long.
We enjoy having you. You are an asset, as well as Paul is.
Thank you.
It says here that we consider approval.
Mr. Chair, I'd be very happy this time to move to approve the annual report dated 6 December 2023 with some minor additions to be made by Director Power as discussed this evening.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by
Jar.
Commissioner Jar, supported by Commissioner
Paul.
Paul. Is this a roll call, or do we have can we have this as
I think we do consensus on
a
that.
consensus? An open vote? Okay, all in favor, signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Next up, we have a meeting scheduled for next year. And presentation by township staff.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just double-checked all these dates, and they are the second and fourth Wednesdays of 2024, except for in November and December, as is typically the schedule. And the meetings are set to be at 5:30 on those dates. So I would just ask you to consider approving formally the schedule for the 2024 Planning Commission meeting cycle.
Commissioners, comments?
I think the 5:30 PM start time has worked out surprisingly well.
Yes.
I like it.
Yes. Anybody else? Then do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, having also verified that all of the dates do indeed fall on the second and fourth Wednesday of each month, 5:30, I move to approve the schedule as submitted.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Jar, supported by Commissioner Creel. Any discussion? Can this be just a consensus vote, I believe? Okay, all those in favor by accepting these dates for a meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And finally, we have election of officers. First up is the chairperson.
Oh, do we want to talk about Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Do we want to hear from staff about the procedure first, or should we just
Sure.
go right ahead with it?
Okay, I guess I jumped the
No,
gun
it's-
on that.
You were following the agenda.
Yes.
Thank you. There was not much on the agenda for that.
You good?
Thank you, planning commissioners. I'll just note, in relation to some previous years, there are some subtle differences. In the update to the rules and procedures for this year, we did make a change where this item that we're considering right now is now the last new business item at the first regular business meeting in December, or when a vacancy occurs. And the roles will take hold at the first regularly scheduled meeting following the election. So those changes were made in the adopted change to the rules and procedures by the Board of Trustees on February 21st of 2023. And so on February 8th of 2023, the Planning Commission held a new election when now trustee Kelly moved on to the Board of Trustees. And a chairperson was selected, and that's Brian Cullen. A vice chairperson, Jeffrey Jar, and a secretary, Medina Atchison, were elected at that time. So I would ask for nominations and elections of those three positions, and also to speak again to the issue of the liaison to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Our rules and procedures have some comments regarding those appointments, and as a practice, the Planning Commission has recommended a member to be the liaison to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and they've also recommended an alternate liaison to the Board of Zoning Appeals. These are recommendations. The Board of Trustees ultimately appoints new members of the Board of Zoning Appeals, so they have a role in this process whenever there's a change. But as of right now, the primary liaison to the BZA is Vice Chair Jeffrey Jar, and the alternate liaison is Chair Brian Cullen. And if those positions are reappointed, there would be no need for any further action by the Board of Trustees at this time. So with that being said, you have those 5 positions before you. I encourage you to take a vote on them.
Thank you. I guess first up is chairperson.
I make a motion that we elect Brian Cullen as chairperson.
Support. Gee, that was almost a vote.
Do we get a half a support from each? Okay, motion by Treasurer Bud and support by Commissioners Creel and Jar. Is this
You might ask if there are any other nominations.
any other nominations? I'm sorry.
Now you have to ask if will you accept that position?
Yes, I will accept the position. Are there any other nominations? Now, vote. Do we have a roll call, or that's just an open consensus vote, isn't it?
Consensus vote will work.
Yep. All in favor signify, for me as chair, Brian Cullen as chairperson, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I guess I'm there again. Now we need a vice chair.
Through the chair, I would like to nominate Commissioner Jar to serve as vice chairman.
Support.
Commissioner Jar would accept that nomination.
Do we have any other nominations? Seeing none, we have a motion by Commissioner Creel and support by Treasurer Bud for Commissioner Jar to remain as vice chair. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? And now we need a secretary.
I will make the motion to nominate Commissioner Medina Atchison for secretary.
Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner Paul, supported by Commissioner Bud. Would she accept?
Mr. Chair, I spoke with Commissioner Atchison was in communication with her earlier today, and she indicated to me that she would be willing to accept the nomination for secretary were it to be proposed. Therefore, I'm also in support of her remaining as secretary.
Okay.
And, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I don't believe you have to be present to win.
Oh, this isn't one of those raffles?
Get appointed to work.
Yes.
More like it.
Okay, do we have any other nominations for secretary? Seeing none, we'll have a consensus vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that takes care of the 3 positions. And we need a primary liaison to the Board of Zoning Appeals. This is by appointment, isn't it, Director Power, not necessarily a vote of the commission?
Yes.
I believe I'm
You,
trying to recall.
you can make your recommendations and the Board of Trustees appoints them to the ZBA,
That's right.
BZA.
Yeah, I think traditionally we've had a vote on the recommendation.
Does it need to be a motion or just a recommendation?
I think we've usually had a vote on the recommendation.
So through the chair.
Yes.
I would like to recommend that we maintain the current liaisons of Commissioner Jeffrey Jar as the main Board of Zoning Appeals member from the Planning Commission, and to have Brian Cullen as the alternate member to the Board of Zoning Appeals from the Planning Commission moving forward.
I'll accept.
No, I would be happy to. It'd be an honor. I would accept that.
Do we have any other nominations? With that in mind, on a consensus vote, all in favor?
Aye.
And we can send that forward to the Board of Trustees. I guess there would not be any further action on that, correct?
The board would not need to take any action on that. Nope, that just maintains their appointments.
Okay, that brings us to the point of general discussion and updates. Do we have anything to add?
So through the chair, I'm surprised I didn't catch this earlier. On item number 4 on the agenda, the Zippy Car Wash approval, the last agenda item said, in the agenda, it said preliminary site approval. I think we just need to amend that to final.
Ooh.
I know we voted on final, and
Yes.
the motion was made on final. I just want to correct the agenda if we can.
Okay.
Apologies for that.
Notation noted.
The action item was considered preliminary, but the actual request was.
Was for final.
And I believe the, and I believe
So
the
the actual
motion.
motion was final.
I said it, right?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, with that, any other comments? Statements?
General discussion?
General discussion?
I like that tri-community meeting that we had. I thought that was really great. I think Commissioner Boynton's suggestion to put it into a roundtable next time would be really great. It would save a lot of us some sore necks and some elbows.
Yeah.
Put it here. It was in the back trying to like here. Put it here.
Hard with the backs to people, but I did see John Juriga earlier today, and of course, it's going to be in the Belleville Museum. He's already got it all lined up so that we'll be sitting at square tables. We will all be facing each other, and he is going to see about if we need some microphones or something so that hearing is not a problem and nobody will look at anybody's back.
Very good, very good. I too enjoyed that interaction we had. It was nice to not only exchange ideas, but to actually meet some of our fellow commissioners and see what's actually happening.
And just to know who are our peers in the neighboring community so that we know, if we have a question, we can, feel like we know who we need to talk to. And yeah, it was really good. I'm glad we
Yeah.
did it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Also, just if they're out there listening, Van Buren Schools, the cafeteria and janitorial staff helped us out tremendously. It was very generous of them to provide some refreshments for us, so thank you to them as well.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Yes, very good, very good. Do we have anything else? Then before I ask for an adjournment, I do want to say, I want to wish everyone, and I believe our commissioners also would like to pass along to our public, very happy holidays, safe, get together with family and friends, and a very happy and prosperous new year and the one to come. Is there any other things? Then anybody else for anything? I would like to ask for a motion for adjournment.
Mr. Chair, I move to adjourn the meeting.
We have a motion and support. All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned. See you in 2024. God, I can't believe it. Wow.